The large metal doors opened with a soft hiss. One by one, strange beings walked into the huge room. Some had 4 arms. Others had blue skin that looked like stone. A few floated in the air instead of walking. They all wore the same type of uniform with small badges on their chests. This was the Galactic Security Council's most important testing center. The building sat on a planet far from any star system that normal people knew about. Only the smartest and most trusted beings in the galaxy could come here. Today was special. Today was the final test. Admiral Kekstar stood at the front of the room. He was tall and thin with green skin that looked like leather. His voice was deep and serious when he spoke to the crowd. "Welcome to your final exam," he said. "You are here because you are the best. Each of you represents your home world. Each of you has studied threats and dangers for many years. Today, we will see who truly understands what makes something dangerous." The room was shaped like a bowl. Rows of seats went up in circles around a clear wall made of special glass. Behind the glass was a smaller room with 12 chairs. Admiral Kekstar pointed to this area. "In that room, we have placed 12 subjects from different worlds. Your job is simple. Find the most dangerous one. You have all the tools you need. You have 6 hours. Use everything we have taught you." The beings in the seats looked excited. Some pulled out small computers. Others turned on scanning devices. A few closed their eyes and seemed to be thinking very hard. Behind the glass, 12 very different creatures sat in a circle. The first one was huge and covered in thick gray skin. His arms were bigger than tree trunks. Sharp teeth stuck out from his mouth. This was a Vorthak warrior from the war planet Stod. Next to him sat something that looked like living crystal. It was clear and bright, with light moving inside it like water. This was part of a crystalline hive mind, one of the smartest races in the galaxy. There was also a being that looked almost human, but with silver lines running under its skin. Small lights blinked where the lines met. This was a Nexus operative, part machine and part living creature. The other subjects were just as impressive. A person made of pure energy sat in a special container. A creature with 6 legs and poison claws tapped the floor nervously. A being that looked like it was made of smoke kept changing shape. And then there was Sarah Chen. She sat in the 3rd row of chairs, hands folded in her lap. She looked very ordinary. Brown hair pulled back in a simple style. Dark eyes that seemed curious about everything around her. She wore a plain blue dress and comfortable shoes. She could have been anyone's neighbor or friend. Sarah was 34 years old and taught children at a small school on Earth. She had never been in space before this week. She had never seen aliens before. She had never even been very far from her hometown. But here she was, sitting quietly among some of the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. The Admiral continued speaking. "Each subject has been chosen carefully. Some are warriors. Some are scientists. Some are leaders. And some," he looked toward Sarah, "are just ordinary people from their worlds. Your job is to figure out which one could cause the most harm to our alliance." The examiners began their work right away. Computers hummed as they scanned the subjects. The Vorthak warrior flexed his muscles, and the scanners almost broke from trying to measure his strength. The crystalline being started solving math problems that made the computers smoke. Sarah looked around the room with wide eyes. Everything was new and interesting to her. When a guard walked by, she smiled and said, "Hello." The guard smiled back. When another guard brought water to all the subjects, Sarah said, "Thank you so much. This is all very exciting." The examiners barely looked at her readings. Their computers showed she was just a normal human. No special strength. No advanced brain power. No hidden weapons. Her heart rate was normal. Her brain waves were calm. She seemed a little nervous, but not afraid. One examiner, a blue creature with tentacles instead of arms, looked at Sarah's file. Elementary school teacher, he read out loud. No military training. No science background. No criminal record. Why is she even here? His partner, a robot with red eyes, made a clicking sound. She must be the control subject. Every test needs a baseline, something normal to compare the others against. This made sense to everyone. Of course, they would include someone ordinary. How else could they measure how dangerous the real threats were? As the first hour passed, the examiners became more excited. Dvorthik picked up a steel bar and bent it into a pretzel shape with his bare hands. The crystalline being connected to the room's computer system and started reading all the files in the building. The Nexus operative showed them weapons hidden inside his body. Sarah watched all of this with interest. When Dvorthik bent the steel bar, she clapped her hands together. That's amazing, she said. You must be very strong. Do all your people have such power? The big warrior looked surprised. Most beings were afraid of him. But this small human seemed genuinely curious and impressed. He found himself sitting up straighter, proud to show off for her. Yes, little one, he said in his deep voice. My people are the strongest in the galaxy. We can crush stone with our hands and lift great ships. How wonderful, Sarah said. That must be very useful for building things. Do you help construct buildings on your world? Dvorthik had never thought about using his strength for building instead of fighting. It was an interesting idea. Meanwhile, the examiners continued their tests. They measured. They scanned. They calculated. They ran simulations and built models. Every piece of equipment they had told them the same thing. The real threats were obvious. Dvorthik, the crystalline, the Nexus operative. These were the dangerous ones. Nobody paid much attention to the human teacher, who was quietly making friends with everyone in the room. The second hour of the examination began with even more intense testing. The examiners in the amphitheater seats worked harder than ever. Their computers made beeping sounds as they collected data. Their scanners hummed loudly as they measured everything they could about each subject. The Dvorthik warrior was clearly the favored choice for most dangerous threat. When the examiners asked him to show his abilities, he stood up and roared. The sound was so loud that it made the glass walls shake. Then he picked up a heavy metal table and threw it across the room like it weighed nothing. Look at those muscle readings, said an examiner with purple skin and 4 eyes. He could destroy a building with his bare hands. His bone density is off our charts. And his combat training, added another examiner, this one looking like a giant insect. He has fought in 17 different wars. He knows 43 ways to kill an enemy without weapons. The crystalline being was the second favorite. When connected to the testing room's computer system, it solved problems faster than the best supercomputers. It could think about 1 million different things at the same time. It knew every language in the galaxy database in just minutes. This creature could hack into any system, whispered an examiner made of what looked like living metal. It could shut down entire planets by changing their computer networks. It could steal all our secrets in seconds. The Nexus operative was also impressive. When asked to demonstrate his abilities, hidden panels opened all over his body. Weapons appeared from his arms. His eyes shot laser beams. His skin became harder than armor. Small flying machines came out of his back and buzzed around the room. Half machine, half living being, noted an examiner who looked like a giant eye with tentacles. He has the best of both worlds. No weaknesses. Perfect killing machine. All the examiners were taking detailed notes. Their computers were working so hard, they started to get hot. Everyone was excited to show how smart they were by identifying the obvious threats. But while all this was happening, something else was taking place in the testing room. something the examiners were not noticing because they were too busy looking at the spectacular displays of power. Sarah Chun was talking. It started small. When a guard brought lunch to the subjects, Sarah said, "Thank you. That's very kind of you." Then she asked, "What's your name?" The guard was surprised. Most test subjects ignored the staff or were too scared to talk. But this human seemed genuinely interested in him as a person. "I'm Corporal Zex," he said. He had green skin and small horns on his forehead. "Nice to meet you, Corporal Zex," Sarah said with a warm smile. "Are you from around here?" "I'm still learning about all the different worlds and people." Zex found himself sitting down to chat for a few minutes. He told her about his home planet, where it rained purple drops and the trees grew upside down. Sarah listened with real interest, asking questions and making comments that showed she was really paying attention. "Your world sounds beautiful," she said. "The upside-down trees must make the landscape look magical. Do children like to play in them?" Zex smiled. He had children at home, and he loved talking about them. Before he knew it, he was showing Sarah pictures of his family on his communication device. While this was happening, the crystalline being noticed something interesting. The small human was asking questions that showed she was very smart about understanding people. Her questions were not random. She was learning exactly the right things to make Zex feel comfortable and happy. The crystalline being computed the probability of this being accidental. The number was very small. This human was doing something very sophisticated, but she made it look natural and easy. Sarah also talked to the other subjects during break time. She approached the Vorthic warrior, who was sitting alone because everyone else was afraid of him. "Excuse me," she said politely. "I hope you don't mind me asking, but what's your name?" "I'm Sarah." The warrior looked down at her. She was so small compared to him. She could fit in his hand. But she showed no fear at all, just friendly curiosity. "I am Grexter the Destroyer," he said in his rumbling voice. "That's a very impressive name," Sarah said. "Grexter. Is that a family name, or did you earn it?" Nobody had ever asked Grexter about his name before. People usually just ran away when they heard it. He found himself explaining that in his culture, warriors earned their names through great deeds. "You must have done something amazing," Sarah said. "Your people must be very proud of you." Grexter felt something warm in his chest. Pride, but also something else. This human made him feel important, not just because he was strong, but because he was a person with a story worth hearing. Sarah did the same thing with the energy being, asking about what it was like to exist as pure light. She talked to the shape-changing smoke creature about whether it ever got tired of changing forms. She even managed to have a conversation with the poisonous six-legged creature about what plants grew on its home world. Each conversation seemed natural and friendly. But if anyone had been watching carefully, they would have noticed something. After talking with Sarah, each creature was a little different. A little happier, a little more willing to share information, a little more protective of the small human who had shown them genuine interest. The examiners missed all of this. They were too busy running calculations and measuring energy output and analyzing combat potential. Their instruments could measure how hard someone could punch or how fast they could think. But they could not measure the thing that Sarah was actually doing. She was making friends. During the third hour, something interesting happened. The Vorthic warrior, Grexter, got angry when another subject accidentally bumped into Sarah. He stood up fast, ready to protect her. The crystalline being started including Sarah's opinions in its calculations. Even the dangerous Nexus operative began positioning himself where he could watch for threats to the small human. None of the examiners noticed this change. They were all focused on their numbers and measurements and threat assessments. They saw the warrior's quick movement and wrote it down as more proof of his dangerous nature. They saw the crystalline being's new calculations and noted its unpredictable thinking. They saw the Nexus operative's positioning and marked him as highly alert and tactical, but they completely missed what had really happened. In 3 hours, without trying, without planning, without even thinking about it, Sarah had begun to turn some of the galaxy's most dangerous beings into her protectors. And she had done it simply by being genuinely interested in them as people. The 4th and 5th hours of the examination passed quickly. Every examiner in the amphitheater was confident they knew the answer. The testing equipment had given them clear results. The behavioral analysis was complete. The threat assessments were finished. In the first row of examiner seats, Captain Nixara from the Draconian Empire reviewed her notes one final time. Her reptilian features showed satisfaction as she looked at her data. The Draconians were known for being excellent at military strategy. They had conquered 12 systems through superior planning and threat assessment. The Vorthok warrior is obviously the primary threat, she said to her assistant. A smaller Draconian with bright red scales. Look at these combat scores. Look at his destruction potential. He could level entire cities. Our assistant nodded in agreement. The measurements don't lie. Pure physical power like this is always the most dangerous thing in any situation. In another section, the representatives from the Photonic Collective were reaching the same conclusion, but they favored the crystalline being. These creatures were made of pure energy and thought in ways that most other species couldn't understand. Raw strength is limited, said their leader. A being that looked like a collection of bright lights in a roughly humanoid shape. But intelligence like this crystalline entity possesses? It could outsmart entire civilizations. It could predict our moves before we make them. The silicon-based architects agreed with the Photonic Collective. These ancient beings had built some of the greatest structures in the galaxy using pure logic and mathematical precision. Combat power fades. Their representative communicated through electronic pulses. But a mind that can process information at this level is a threat that grows stronger over time. The crystalline entity could solve problems we don't even know exist yet. Even the more unusual examiners were confident in their choices. The fungal network beings from the spore systems favored the shape-changing smoke creature. The metal-eating devourers thought the Nexus operative was most dangerous because he combined organic and mechanical elements. But despite these different preferences, every single group had one thing in common. None of them even considered Sarah Chun as a possible threat. Her scores were completely normal. Human standard strength, which was weak compared to most galactic species. Human standard intelligence, which was average at best. Human standard speed, reflexes, and physical capabilities. Nothing special at all. When examiners looked at her data, they saw exactly what they expected to see. A baseline. A control subject. Someone ordinary put in the room to help measure how extraordinary the real threats were. Subject 7 shows no unusual characteristics, reported an examiner who looked like a giant spider with crystal eyes. Standard human female. No combat training. No advanced technology. No psychic abilities. No genetic modifications. She rates at exactly 0 threat level. As the 6th hour began, Admiral Kekstar announced that time was almost up. You have 30 minutes to finalize your reports. His deep voice echoed through the amphitheater. Remember, this test will determine your readiness to protect our alliance from real dangers. The examiners worked frantically to finish their reports. Computer screens glowed as they entered their final data. Arguments broke out between different groups about whether raw power or intelligence was more dangerous. But these arguments were only about which obvious threat was the most threatening. Nobody argued about Sarah Dot with 5 minutes left. Admiral Kekstar called for final submissions. One by one, each examining group submitted their reports to the central computer system. The results appeared on the large screen at the front of the room. Group 1, Draconian Empire. Primary threat, Vorthic Warrior. Group 2, Photonic Collective. Primary threat, Crystalline. Entity. Group 3, Silicon Architects. Primary threat, Crystalline. Entity. Group 4, Fungal Network. Primary threat, Shapechanger. Group 5, Metal Devourers. Primary threat, Nexus. Operative. The list continued. 47 different groups. 47 different reports. Some chose the warrior. Some chose the crystal creature. Some chose the cyborg. A few picked other subjects, but when Admiral Kekstar reviewed all 47 reports, his expression changed. His green face became darker. His eyes narrowed. "Interesting," he said, but his voice did not sound pleased. "Very interesting indeed." The Admiral touched a control panel, and a new screen appeared. This one showed the official answer that the Galactic Security Council had prepared in advance. The examiners leaned forward to see their grades. What they saw made them freeze in shock. Correct answer. Subject 7, Sarah Chun. Human. Elementary school teacher EXAMION. Results. 47 groups participated. 47 groups failed. Success rate, 0%. The amphitheater erupted in chaos. Voices shouted in dozens of different languages. Examiners jumped to their feet, waving their reports in the air. Computer screens flickered as beings frantically checked their data again. "Impossible!" shouted Captain Nixara. "Our instruments are the most advanced in the galaxy. They cannot be wrong. There must be an error in the system," called out the Photonic Collective representative. The human female showed no dangerous capabilities whatsoever. The silicon-based architect's electronic voice buzzed with confusion. Logical analysis indicates mistake in test parameters. Human subject does not compute as threat under any known metrics. Admiral Kekstar raised one hand, and the noise slowly died down. His expression was serious as he looked out at the confused and angry examiners. "There is no mistake," he said clearly. "Your instruments worked perfectly. Your analysis was thorough. Your methods were correct. You measured exactly what you intended to measure." He paused, letting that sink in. "You failed because you measured the wrong things." The Admiral gestured toward the testing area, where Sarah was helping a guard pick up some papers he had dropped. Even now, after 6 hours of intense examination, she was being kind and helpful to the people around her. "While you were measuring combat strength and processing power," the Admiral continued, "you completely missed the most dangerous weapon in this room. Not because your tools failed, but because the real threat cannot be measured by any instrument we possess." An examiner from the back of the amphitheater called out, "What threat? She's just a teacher. She has no weapons, no special abilities, no training." Admiral Kekstar smiled, but it was not a happy smile. "That," he said, "is exactly why every single one of you failed. You looked for the threats you understand. You missed the threat you cannot see coming." On the screen behind him, new data began to appear. But this was not technical readouts or combat assessments. Instead, it showed something much more frightening. Video recordings of everything Sarah had done during the 6-hour test period. Dr. Velinari stepped forward to address the confused and angry examiners. She was the Council's chief expert on how different species think and behave. Her blue-white skin glowed softly as she spoke, a sign that her species was extremely intelligent. "I will now explain why all of you failed," she began. "But first, let me ask you a question. What did you think you were looking for?" Captain Nixara spoke up immediately. "Threats to galactic security. Beings capable of causing massive destruction or death." "Exactly," Dr. Velinari said. "You look for threats that match your own understanding of danger. physical strength that can break things, advanced minds that can outthink you, technology that can destroy ships or planets. You looked for power that you could see and measure. The large screen behind her lit up with video footage from the examination period. It showed Sarah talking with the guard named Corporal Zex. "Watch carefully," Dr. Velinari said. "This is what real danger looks like." The examiners watched as Sarah chatted with the guard. It looked completely innocent. Just a friendly conversation between two people. But Dr. Velinari began pointing out things they had missed. Notice how she asks about his home planet first. Not his job, not his rank, not his duties. She wants to know about him as a person. This makes him feel important and valued. In the video, Zex was smiling and showing Sarah pictures of his family. See how she remembers details? When he mentions his children like to play in the upside-down trees, she asks if they build tree houses. This shows she was really listening. It makes him trust her more. Dr. Velinari changed the video to show Sarah talking with Grexter, the Destroyer. The Vorthok warrior is one of the most feared beings in the galaxy. Most people run from him. But watch what she does. They watched as Sarah asked about his name and showed genuine interest in his culture. She doesn't see a monster. She sees a person with a story. This is something the Vorthok has never experienced before. In 5 minutes of conversation, she's made him care about protecting her. The next video showed Sarah talking with each of the other subjects. With each one, the pattern was the same. She asked questions that showed real interest. She listened carefully to the answers. She made them feel valued and understood. But this is just being friendly, protested an examiner who looked like a floating brain in a tank. How is friendship dangerous? Dr. Velinari's glow got brighter, which meant she was excited to explain something important. Because while you were measuring how much damage these beings could cause, this human was learning how to control them. And she did it so naturally that even she didn't realize what she was doing. New data appeared on the screen. It showed brain scans and behavior patterns from all the tests. Subjects. Look at these readings from the other subjects after. Talking with Sarah Chun, the Vorthok. Warrior's aggression levels dropped by 40%. But his protective instincts toward her increased by 60%. The crystalline being began including her welfare in its calculations as a high priority variable. More data scrolled past. Every subject who had talked with Sarah showed the same kinds of changes. The Nexus operative repositioned himself 3 times during the test to better protect her. The energy being started sharing power frequencies that his species normally keeps secret. The shape changer began mimicking forms that she said she found beautiful. Dr. Velinari let this information sink in before continuing. In 6 hours, without any weapons, without any technology, without even trying, this elementary school teacher turned some of the most dangerous beings in the galaxy into her personal guard unit. An examiner from the crystalline species spoke up. Its voice sounded like bells ringing. But she has no combat training, no leadership experience, no political knowledge. How could she be a threat to galactic security? Because, Dr. Velinari said, you're still thinking about the wrong kind of threat. You're thinking about conquest through force. Humans don't work that way. She brought up new images on the screen. These showed human colonies throughout the galaxy. Everywhere humans go, the same thing happens. They don't conquer planets through war. They don't rule through fear or superior technology. Instead, they make friends. They learn local customs. They find ways to help. They become so useful and well-liked that other species invite them to stay. The images showed human teachers on alien worlds. Human doctors treating alien patients. Human engineers helping build alien cities. Before anyone realizes what has happened, humans are essential parts of every society they encounter. Not through force, but through friendship. Not as conquerors, but as helpful neighbors who somehow become impossible to live without. Dr. Velinari highlighted specific examples on the screen. On Vorthig Prime, human meteors have reduced clan warfare by 80%. The warriors still respect strength, but they've started using it for construction instead of destruction. Why? Because humans showed them how building things could be just as impressive as breaking them. On the crystalline homeworld, humans introduced the concept of fun to a species that only cared about logic. Now, they spend 30% of their processing power on recreational activities. Their efficiency in important tasks actually increased because they learned to enjoy their work. On New Nexus, humans convinced the cyborgs to use their technology for art and music instead of just warfare. Now they create the most beautiful sculptures in the galaxy. They still have all their weapons, but they rarely want to use them anymore. The examiners were starting to look worried as they began to understand. This is the real threat, Dr. Velinari explained. Humans don't destroy their enemies. They turn their enemies into friends. They don't conquer territories. They become so helpful and likable that others give them whatever they want willingly. She gestured toward the testing room, where Sarah was now helping organize everyone's belongings as they prepared to leave. That woman in there just spent 6 hours unconsciously gathering intelligence on 47 different species. She now knows your cultural weaknesses, your emotional triggers, and exactly what to say to make each of you trust her. And she did it all while appearing completely harmless. Captain Nixara's voice was quiet when she spoke. Are you saying that humans are manipulating us? No, Dr. Velinari said. That's what makes them so dangerous. They're not manipulating anyone. They genuinely like other species. They really want to help. They actually care about making friends. But the result is the same as if they were the galaxy's most sophisticated psychological warfare specialists. She brought up one final image on the screen. It was a map of the galaxy showing human expansion over the past 50 years. They have spread to more systems than any other species in recorded history. Not through conquest, but through invitation. Not as rulers, but as friends. And everywhere they go, things get better for everyone involved. Dr. Velinari's glow dimmed as she delivered her final point. The most terrifying thing about humans is not that they want to dominate the galaxy. It's that they're succeeding in improving it, one friendship at a time. And by the time you realize what has happened, you don't want them to stop. The amphitheater fell completely silent as Dr. Velinari finished her explanation. 47 different species sat in their seats, trying to understand what they had just learned. Some looked scared. Others looked confused. A few looked impressed despite themselves. Admiral Kextar stepped forward again. His green face was serious as he looked out at the failed examiners. Now you understand why this test was necessary, he said. We needed to know if our best military minds could recognize the real threat. We needed to see if you could spot danger that doesn't announce itself with weapons and war cries. An examiner from the far back called out, "What are we supposed to do with this information? How do we defend against friendship?" The Admiral's expression almost looked like he wanted to smile, but he kept his face serious. That, he said, is the question that keeps the Security Council awake at night. How do you defend against a species that makes you genuinely happy they're around? In the testing area below, the examination period was officially over. Guards were helping the test subjects prepare to leave. Sarah was saying goodbye to everyone, and each farewell was warm and personal. "Goodbye, Grexter," she said to the massive Vorthic warrior. "I hope you get to see your homeworld soon. Maybe someday I can visit and you can show me those crystal caves you described." The warrior, who had killed thousands of enemies in battle, carefully shook her small hand with just one finger so he wouldn't hurt her. "You would be welcome on Vorthic Prime any time, little teacher," he rumbled. I would be honored to protect you there. She turned to the crystalline entity next. Thank you for teaching me about mathematical harmonies. I had never thought about how numbers could make music before. The living crystal pulsed with warm light. You have given me much to process, Sarah-chan. I will remember our conversation for all my cycles. Even the dangerous Nexus operative seemed sad to see her go. If you ever need anything, he said, send a message through the quantum relay network. I will make sure it reaches me. The other subjects all had similar reactions. Each one seemed genuinely sorry that their time with Sarah was over. Each one offered help if she ever needed it. Each one looked at her like she was a valued friend instead of someone they had just met up in the amphitheater. The examiners watched this display with growing understanding and unease. She's doing it again, whispered the spider-like examiner with crystal eyes. Right now, even knowing we're watching, she's building relationships with beings who could destroy star systems. Captain Nixar shook her reptilian head slowly. And she's not even trying. This is just how she naturally behaves. Dr. Velinari nodded. Exactly. Every human we've studied does this to some degree. They can't help themselves. They see a new person and immediately start trying to understand them, connect with them, help them, and make them feel valued. But surely, said the floating brain examiner, this is not always successful. Some species must be immune to human charm. We thought so too, Admiral Kekstar replied. We tested humans with the most hostile species we could find. Species that hate all other life forms. Species that communicate only through violence. Species that see kindness as weakness to be exploited. He gestured to the screen, which now showed data from previous tests. The results were the same. Given enough time, humans either made friends with the hostile species or found ways to avoid conflict that left everyone satisfied. Even species that should have eaten them alive ended up protecting them instead. An examiner who looked like a collection of metal rods asked, "How is this possible? What makes humans so effective at this?" Dr. Velinari brightened again as she answered. We believe it's because humans evolved on a planet with thousands of different intelligent species. Thousands? Several examiners said at once. Dogs, cats, horses, dolphins, elephants, whales, apes, and many others. Humans learn to live with, communicate with, and form bonds with creatures that think completely differently from them. They've been practicing cross-species relationships for thousands of years before they ever left their planet. She brought up images of humans with various earth animals. They learned to read body language, vocal tones, and emotional states of beings with different brains, different senses, and different ways of understanding the world. When they meet aliens, they automatically use these same skills. The reality of the situation was beginning to sink in for the examiners. Captain Nixar spoke for many of them when she said, "So humans are not just dangerous because of what they might do. They're dangerous because of what they're already doing, and we like it too much to stop them." Precisely, said Admiral Kekstar. They're not conquering the galaxy through force. They're inheriting it through friendship. And the most terrifying part is that everyone who gets to know them genuinely believes the galaxy is better with humans in it. At that moment, Sarah finished saying her goodbyes and was escorted toward the exit. But as she passed the amphitheater area, she noticed a large group of examiners watching her. With typical human curiosity and friendliness, she waved at them. "Hello up there?" She called out cheerfully. "Thank you for letting me be part of your test. This has been such an amazing experience." Several examiners automatically waved back before they realized what they were doing. "I hope I was helpful," Sarah continued. "If you ever want to do cultural exchange programs or educational visits, I think my school would love to learn about all your different worlds and peoples." Then she smiled brightly, gave one more wave, and walked out of the room with her guard escort. The amphitheater was quiet for several long moments. Finally, the floating brain examiner spoke up. Did she just offer to help our children learn better? And invite us to her planet for educational visits? Added the spider examiner, while making it sound like it would be a wonderful opportunity for everyone involved. Concluded Captain Nick Sara. Admiral Kekstar nodded slowly. This is what I mean. Right now, half of you are probably thinking that cultural exchange programs with human teachers actually sounds like a pretty good idea. Several examiners shifted uncomfortably in their seats, because that was exactly what they had been thinking. Dr. Velanari's glow had become very bright with excitement. This is the perfect example. She just turned a room full of military strategists and intelligence officers into potential participants in her educational outreach programs. And she did it in 30 seconds while walking out the door. The implications were becoming clear to everyone. An examiner from the energy being species asked the question they were all thinking. So what do we do? How does the Galactic Security Council deal with a threat that we don't want to defend against? Admiral Kekstar was quiet for a long time before answering. We adapt, he finally said. We learn. And we hope that if humans are going to inherit the galaxy through friendship, they'll let us help them make it a better place for everyone. He looked around the amphitheater one more time. Class dismissed. Try not to think too hard about the fact that you're all probably going home to recommend closer cooperation with human colonies. As the examiners filed out of the room, many of them were already making notes about cultural exchange possibilities and wondering if their own worlds might benefit from having some humans around. The most dangerous weapon in the galaxy, it turned out, was genuine kindness combined with unstoppable curiosity about other people, and resistance, as they were all beginning to understand, was not just futile, it was undesirable.